Hello, and welcome to Fairy Tale Nights, your cozy corner for magical stories that whisk you away to enchanted lands. I'm so glad you're here with us tonight. Whether you're winding down after a long day or just looking for a little escape into a world of wonder, you're in the right place. Tonight, we have a very special autumn tale for you. The Enchanted Forest of Ashenwood. It's a beautiful story about love, loss, and the mysterious magic of the forest during the golden season of fall. Perfect for these cool, crisp nights. May I ask a favor? Would you please subscribe to this channel? Your support truly means the world to me, and it helps keep the magic alive. So now, close your eyes, get comfortable. Find your coziest blanket, settle into your favorite spot, and let your mind drift away with the sound of this enchanted story. Once upon a time, in a land where the autumn sun burned a warm, golden light and the crisp scent of leaves filled the air, there was a small village nestled deep within the heart of a vast, enchanted forest. The village of Harrow Hill was known for its quiet beauty, especially in autumn, when the trees blazed in shades of amber, scarlet, and gold, casting a dreamlike glow on the cobblestone streets. At the edge of the village, where the woods began their slow, mysterious creep, there stood an old, ivy-covered house. Its weathered stones and dark wooden beams gave it an air of ancient magic, and some whispered that it had once belonged to a forest witch long ago. Now, it was home to a woman named Elowyn. Elowyn was not like the other villagers. She was quiet, solitary, and some would say a little strange. She spent her days wandering the forest, collecting herbs and flowers, and she spoke little to the townsfolk. Some feared her, thinking she was a witch herself, though in truth, merely a healer with a deep understanding of nature's gifts. Her heart was kind, but her soul carried a weight she could not shake. For Elowyn harbored a secret that no one else knew. Many years ago, when she was still young and full of joy, Elowyn had fallen in love with a young man named Rowan. He'd been the son of a farmer, strong and handsome, with a laugh that could warm even the coldest of days. They had spent their days together, wandering through the autumn woods, basking in the beauty of the season. But their love had been cut short when Rowan was taken by the forest one cold November night. No one knew what had happened to him, and despite searching for days, no trace of him had ever been found. Since then, Elowyn had lived alone in her house at the edge of the forest, mourning the love she had lost and feeling the chill of the approaching winter deep in her bones. But as autumn returned each year, she felt Rowan's presence more strongly, as if the rustling of the leaves carried his voice, whispering to her, calling her back to the woods. On one particularly cool evening, as the last rays of the sun faded into the fiery canopy, Elowyn found herself drawn to the heart of the forest. She wrapped herself in a thick woolen cloak, its deep green fabric blending with the earth beneath her feet, and set off into the trees. The air was rich with the scent of pine and moss, and the faint sound of running water echoed in the distance. It felt as though the forest were alive, breathing with her as she walked deeper into its depths. After what seemed like hours, Eloise reached a place she had never seen before, a clearing surrounded by towering oaks and illuminated by the soft glow of the rising moon. At the center of the clearing was a great stone, covered in moss and carved with ancient symbols that Eloise could not understand. As she approached, she felt a strange pull, as though someone was calling her closer. Suddenly, the wind picked up, swirling around her in a spiral of leaves. The trees whispered her name, and for a moment, Eloise could swear she heard Rowan's voice, faint and distant, as if carried on the breeze. Her heart raced. Could it be? Could he still be here, somewhere, lost in the forest? A chill ran down her spine as the wind stilled, and from the shadows of the trees, a figure emerged. It was tall and cloaked in darkness, its face obscured by a hood. But there was something familiar about the way it moved, the way it stood as if waiting for her. "Rowan?" she whispered, her voice trembling with hope and fear. The figure stepped forward, and as it did, the moonlight revealed his face. It was Rowan, but not as she remembered him. His skin was pale, almost translucent, and his eyes glowed with an otherworldly light. Yet his features were the same, the strong jaw, the sharp lines of his face, the soft curve of his lips. It was him. He had returned. "Eloise," he said, his voice soft and hollow, like the wind rustling through dead leaves. She ran to him, her heart bursting with emotion. But as she reached out to touch him, her hand passed through his chest as though he were made of mist. She gasped and stumbled back, her eyes wide with disbelief. What has happened to you?" she asked, her voice shaking. "I am no longer of this world," Rowan replied, his gaze filled with sorrow. "I was taken by the forest, claimed by its ancient magic. I walk between the realms now, neither alive nor dead." Eloine's heart ached. The joy of seeing him again was tempered by the knowledge that he was lost to her forever. "Is there nothing we can do?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. "There must be a way to bring you back." Rowan shook his head. "I am bound to the forest now. But there is one way, a dangerous path that might return me to the world of the living. It would require a great sacrifice." "I would do anything," Eloise said, her voice firm despite the fear that gripped her. "Tell me what I must do." Rowan hesitated for a moment, then gestured to the stone in the clearing. "This is the Heartstone, the source of the forest's magic. If you are willing, you can offer a part of your own life force to restore mine. But it is dangerous, Elowen. You could lose yourself to the forest, as I did." Elowen looked at the stone, her mind racing. The thought of losing herself to the forest was terrifying, but the thought of losing Rowan again was unbearable. "I will do it," she said, her voice steady. Rowan's eyes softened, and for a moment she saw the man she had loved, the man who had laughed with her in the autumn sun and held her hand. As they walked through the woods, he stepped closer, his form still ghostly and insubstantial, and placed his hand over hers. "Thank you," he whispered, and for a brief moment she felt the warmth of his touch, as though he were real once more. Together, they approached the Heartstone. Eowyn knelt before it, her heart pounding in her chest. She closed her eyes and placed her hands on the stone, feeling its cold surface beneath her palms. The ancient symbols carved into the rock began to glow, and a deep, resonant hum filled the air. As the magic of the Heartstone flowed through her, Eowyn felt a strange warmth spreading through her body, as though the very life was being drawn from her. It wasn't painful, but it was overwhelming, and she felt herself growing weaker with each passing moment. Suddenly, the light from the stone flared, blinding her, and she was thrown back onto the ground. For a moment, everything was silent, and Eowyn lay there, her chest heaving as she tried to catch her breath. When she opened her eyes, Rowan was standing before her. But this time, he was solid, real. His skin had regained its color, and his eyes no longer glowed with that eerie light. He was alive. "Eowyn," he whispered, his voice filled with wonder. He knelt beside her and pulled her into his arms. "You did it. You brought me back." Tears filled her eyes as she clung to him, feeling the warmth of his body, the steady beat of his heart. "I thought I had lost you," she whispered. "You almost did," Rowan said, pulling back to look at her. His expression was serious now. "But there is a price to pay for the magic we used. The forest will claim me again if we do not leave this place before the sun rises." Eowyn's heart sank. "Then we must go, now." They stood and began to make their way back through the forest. But as they walked, Eowyn felt something strange within her. Her steps grew slower, her limbs heavier, and the air around her seemed to thicken, as though the forest itself was trying to hold her back. "Eowyn?" Rowan's voice was filled with concern as he turned to her. "What's wrong?" "I don't know," she said, her voice weak. "I feel tired." Rowan's brow furrowed, and he reached for her hand. But as soon as their fingers touched, a sharp jolt of energy shot through her, and she gasped, pulling her hand away. "Eowyn, the magic." Rowan's voice was tight with fear. "It's not just your life force that the Heartstone took. It bound you to the forest as well. You're becoming a part of it." Eowyn's eyes widened in horror. "No," she whispered. "I didn't mean to." "You didn't know," Rowan said, his voice soothing despite the fear in his eyes. "But we can still fix this. We just need to find the guardian of the forest. She can undo the bond, but we have to move quickly." They pushed onward, but with every step, Eowyn felt the forest's pull growing stronger. The trees whispered to her, their voices soft and seductive, calling her to stay, to become one with the earth and the leaves. She stumbled, her legs growing weak, but Rowan was there, his arm around her, supporting her as they pressed forward. At last, they reached a glade where the trees parted to reveal a small, ancient woman sitting on a fallen log. Her hair was white as snow, and her eyes glittered with the wisdom of centuries. She looked up as they approached, her expression calm and knowing. "I have been expecting you," she said, her voice like the rustling of leaves in the wind. "You seek to undo what has been done." Rowan stepped forward, desperation in his voice. "Please, we need your help." Eowyn, she gave part of her life to bring me back. and now the forest is claiming her. The guardian nodded slowly. I can undo the bond, she said, but it will come at a price. What price? Eloine asked, her voice barely more than a whisper. You must give up the magic that binds you to this place, the guardian said. You will no longer feel the forest's call, nor will you hear its whispers. You will live as others do, disconnected from the ancient power that flows through these woods. But you will be free. Eloine's heart ached at the thought of losing the connection she had always felt to the forest, the sense of belonging she had found among the trees. But when she looked at Rowan, standing there, alive and real, she knew what her choice would be. I will give it up, she said, her voice steady. The guardian nodded and rose to her feet. She approached Eloine and placed her hands on her shoulders, her touch light as a breeze. A soft glow surrounded them, and Eloine felt a warmth spreading through her, gentle and soothing. The pull of the forest began to fade, and the whispers in her mind grew quiet until they were gone completely. When the light faded, the guardian stepped back, her eyes kind. It is done, she said. Eloine took a deep breath, feeling lighter, freer. The forest no longer called to her, but in its place, she felt a different warmth, the warmth of love, of life, of a future she had thought she would never have. Rowan took her hand, and this time, there was no shock of magic, no strange energy between them. It was just him, warm and real. Thank you, Eloine said, her voice filled with gratitude. The guardian smiled softly. Go now, she said. Live your life and cherish the love you have found. And so, hand in hand, Eloine and Rowan left the glade, walking back through the autumn woods, the leaves crunching beneath their feet. The sun was just beginning to rise, casting a soft golden light over the trees, and for the first time in years, Eloine felt at peace. As they reached the edge of the forest, the village of Harrow Hill came into view, its rooftops glowing in the morning light. Eloine looked at Rowan, her heart full, and smiled. They had found their way back to each other, through magic and sacrifice, and now, with the autumn sun warming their faces, they would walk into a new future together. And so, as the leaves continued to fall, and the air grew cool with the promise of winter, Eloine and Rowan lived their days in quiet happiness, their love as enduring as the forest itself. And so, the tale of the Enchanted Forest of Ashenwood comes to an end, reminding us that love, even in the face of impossible odds, can bring us back from the darkest places. Though the magic of the forest may be a fantasy, the strength we find in ourselves and the power of connection is something we can carry with us into our own lives. I hope this story brought you comfort and allowed you to drift into a world where anything is possible, even if just for a little while. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. If you enjoyed this journey, I would be truly grateful if you subscribed to Fairy Tale Nights. Your support helps me continue sharing these magical stories with you. Don't forget to hit that bell so you'll always know when a new tale is ready to whisk you away. You can continue listening to the soothing music for a little while longer, allowing yourself to relax even more. Until next time, sweet dreams and good night.